Hey there, it's Persephone. So, I have a new video for you. I have a new thing that I've been thinking about a little bit on and off. Now, I should make sure to mention beforehand that this is my personal opinion. This might be a bit controversial for some people, but the idea behind this is not to generalize everybody into the same group, because everybody has different experiences, whether it's from the point of view of dysphoria, people that they live with, or simply the fact that they're not all the exact same person. So I can tell you that in my particular situation, I have noticed something that is a bit different between, let's say, myself and my cisgender wife. First of all, yes, we were married long before I came out. We have two beautiful children. But the main thing that I'm trying to show with this is essentially that despite the fact that she was born female and I have come to it recently, she has been able to understand me on a way that a lot of people don't even bother trying to do. Now, just to be sure, this is not going to be the same for everyone. So my wife, she has relatively recently had gastric bypass surgery. Now, she talks about that on her YouTube channel, which I will try and link in the description below when I have a chance. So she actually talks about that particular situation. Now, in our case, she was able to understand me on a level that I don't frequently see people talking about. She basically, the way we had spoken about it, she basically understands the dysphoria aspect because of her own dysmorphia. Which, for those of you who don't know, dysmorphia is essentially seeing yourself in the mirror as different than your own personal self-image. So, essentially, she was significantly overweight, and we have together been on many diets, and that's part of the problem, that diets don't really tend to work. But that's another story, and I'll let her take care of that on her own channel. Now, what I feel is comparative about this is simple. She looked in the mirror, saw somebody who was overweight. Her own self-image is not somebody that's overweight. She sees herself as the person, when she thinks about herself in her mind's eye, she thinks of herself as the person she is, not the body that she's wearing. So despite the fact that she's cisgender and she's very comfortable with her body, she doesn't see it the same way. So there are many people who are transgender who will say this very simply, that they don't see themselves as the same body that is physically shown to the world. So whether it's a male with the body born as female, or female with the body born as male, it's still essentially the same thing. Your body and your self-image, your body and your spirit, your body and your mind, whichever way you choose to express it, don't match. So one thing that somebody who is not transgender but wanting to understand someone who is transgender could start with is that essentially if your body and your mind, or your body and your spirit, or your body and your self-image, whatever wording you want to use, don't match perfectly, that can either be that is generally considered to be dysmorphia, and when it comes to someone who's transgender, it's part of dysphoria. Now, in other similarities in this case include the simple fact that it's a constant battle to be yourself. So if somebody is overweight, for example, who is having a lot of trouble with doctors not seeing who they are, basically what has been dubbed the broken arm syndrome. You can walk into a hospital, a trans person will walk into a hospital, say, ouch, I broke my arm. The doctor tends, if they don't already have some kind of reason to think otherwise, they will look at a transgender person and say, well, that must be because of the hormones you are, that must be because you're transgender. When somebody is overweight, when somebody is fat, they face a similar problem. Oh, your arm is broken? It must be because you're too fat and your body is not supporting itself. You must be unhealthy in some way, physically, mentally, whatever. It's not because you just had your arm crushed under a 20-pound boulder that just fell on you from nowhere. It's because you're fat or you're transgender. Now, again, I should reiterate, I am not trying to say that being fat or being transgender are the same. They are not the same. I'm using it as an example to help somebody who is not transgender or somebody who is not fat, either way, be able to empathize. And by that I don't mean say everything is perfect, just to understand where the other person is coming from. Now, on top of that, when somebody is overweight, there's often a lot of time and a lot of money spent on diets, on exercise equipment, on other various reasons or various ways of dealing with it in order to bring their body in line with their self-image. In my wife's case, that meant that she kept trying to lose weight and was frequently successful to a point when she was pushing herself too hard and essentially gave up. Now, that is not to say that she should have ever given up in that respect. That's to say it is exhausting. All these diets take their toll physically and emotionally. They are not, and I repeat, not easy to do. They are not easy to stick with. It's the same thing with somebody taking the time to go to a gym and then having somebody say, ha ha ha, look at that fat person working out. It's discouraging, it's hurtful. Now, look at somebody who's transgender in comparison. In my particular case, my way of dealing with my body and my spirit not matching was to start very simple, very low-key. I started with clothing, and makeup. And eventually, because unfortunately the hair that I was born with is not, let's just put it this way, it doesn't look like this. So I feel like I need the makeup, I need the clothing, I need the jewelry, and I especially need the hair in order to express who I am, to express my femininity. Say what you will about whether I'm successful or not, it doesn't matter. It's important to me, so please live with it. Now, that said, I spent a significant a not insignificant amount of money, there we go, in order to do that. As my wife was going through her weight loss issues, I frequently gained and lost weight with her, but essentially it wasn't on the same level. In my particular case, she's been an immense help as far as allowing me to be myself, allowing me to express myself the way I am. Very, very important and very instrumental. Which is what I always tried to do for her, even before I was able to come out to her, or even to myself, about who I really am. Now that's very important. Everybody needs someone they can count on, somebody who can talk to them, who they can talk to be one-on-one. Regardless of whether you're talking about weight, or transgender, or really anything else, you need somebody. Now, on top of everything else, as I mentioned, she had gone through gastric bypass surgery. What that essentially means, in a nutshell, so just breaking it down to its very simplest level, is a qualified medical professional performed surgery where they basically limited the amount of food that can be digested at once. She cannot eat as much as she used to. She needs to take vitamins pretty much for the rest of her life. She needs somebody to be with her and to count on every day, because this by itself will still take its emotional toll. Now, in my case, while I have not as of yet had the surgery, and I'm volunteering that information at the moment, you don't need to ask in the comments, please. That's generally rude. From her surgery, I've seen her recovery. I've seen some of the negative aspects of recovery as well as the positives of recovery from the surgery itself. Now, surgery is still on the table for me. Once the time comes, we'll deal with it. But knowing the surgery that I want to go through, looking at her and her issues with the surgery, that moment, that oh shit, what did I do moment, that's perfectly fine that she had that. And honestly, I fully expect that she is going to have that. I expect that when I do finally have my surgery, I'll have it too. And you know what? I'll deal with that when it comes to it. It's not going to be some giant thing as long as we're taking care of ourselves. And that's where the biggest part is going to be. She had to have a significant recovery time just to get to the point where she can do things normally. I'll have a significant amount of recovery time before I'll be able to do things normally as well. We know what to expect. But until she can go to the doctor and somebody will say and the doctor will say to her, this has nothing to do with you being fat, this is because you're a human being, if they can't look at her and say, your arm was just crushed by a boulder and that's why it's broken, she's always going to have those little problems. And I'm going to be with her every step of the way for that. In the reverse situation, until healthcare improves to the point where somebody looks at a transgender patient and understands this is what that person is, I'm going to still be dealing with that same thing too. I'm sure you can hear my voice doesn't sound perfect. I'm sure you can tell that without the surgery my body doesn't look perfect. but I'm me. I am not some imaginary, bulbous creature in another part of the world. I'm me. I'm here. So, I guess the entire thing that I'm trying to get down to is we're human. We need to be treated as such. We are not the same, despite the fact that we have similar issues. But in both of our cases, we're able to use our own personal issues, our own internal monologue, as a way of understanding the other person. And that is extremely, extremely necessary in life. To be able to look at somebody else and say, so that person's fat, so that person's trans, so that person's whatever they are, they're still a person. Once we can use our own issues in order to understand another person's issues, that is when we start evolving as a people. That is when we start being able to understand, being able to empathize, being able to realize there's very little difference between me sitting here now, my wife sitting in the other room now, and you sitting wherever you are now, assuming you're sitting at all. We are all humans. We are all entitled to the same basic respect and dignity. You are allowed to disagree with me. I will never, ever censor someone based on whether they agree or disagree with me. But please try to be respectful of us, my wife's issues, my own issues. We'll also try to be respectful of you and your issues. Because we all have issues. Regardless of whether they're big or small, doesn't matter. Now that I've completely twisted around what I was going to say in the first place, the whole point I was trying to make is we're not the same, but we're similar. Let's try to understand other people so we can all be one people together. So we can all be on the same page. I love you all, my friends. I'll talk to you another time. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell for the next time I have too much to say. And leave any comments or suggestions over stuff you'd like me to talk about. Talk to you soon. Mwah.